All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March 23rd Oshkosh Common Council meeting. Please call the roll.
Allison Osby. Here. Krause.
Here.
Lugerower.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Peschel.
Here.
Ford.
Here.
Palmieri.
Here.
Present 7.
Okay, Councilmember Allison Osby will lead us in the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. We are mindful of the blessings of liberty that we have in this nation. May our decisions tonight improve the quality of life in our city and for our residents. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next we have citizen statements to council. Pam, do we have anyone registered?
We do not.
Okay, very good. How about for public comment on agenda items?
No one's registered.
Okay. Next, we have consent agenda. Can we have a motion and a second on consent?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Allison Osby and Ford seconds. All right. And discussion on consent. I just had a quick question for, let's see here, special event 21-151, number 23. Looks like we're moving forward with some sidewalk days downtown. Just had a question. I don't know if Mr. Davis is available to speak to this. There were a couple of folks who have in the past asked about doing parklets to expand space. I was just curious if that came up in the discussion for the sidewalk days where the occasional parking spot is roped off and used for extra space. Or maybe Kathy Snell.
I would have to defer that to Kathy. I wasn't part of that discussion.
We did not talk about before. We discussed was just that they would be doing similar to what we have for the farmers market. The farmers market has from the curb to the brick area on the sidewalk in order to allow for ADA compliance for the remainder of the sidewalk to be open. So the businesses that will be participating in the sidewalk sale will utilize just that brick area between the curb and the sidewalk.
I see. All right. Thank you. Any other questions or discussion on consent? All right. Please call the roll.
Allison Osby.
Aye.
Krause.
Aye.
Lugerower.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Peschel.
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
Carried 7.
Okay, moving on to pending ordinances. Number 34, ordinance 21-162, approve zone change from urban mixed use district with a university transition overlay to institutional district with a university transition overlay for parcels west of 417 Algoma Boulevard. Plan Commission recommends approval. We have a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Mugrauer and Erickson, discussion on 21-162. I believe this was referenced at the last meeting as the parcels for the Salvation Army and their expansion project.
Yes.
Any discussion, questions? All right, please call the roll.
Allison Osby.
Aye.
Krause.
Aye.
Lugerower.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Peschel.
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
Carried 7.
All right, we have a new ordinance this evening. 21-163, there will be no action tonight. Approve request to attach to the city from Town of Algoma, Jones Park subdivision, voluntary attachment. Mr. Davis or Mr. Lyons, would you share a kind of a brief summary of what's going on there?
I can start it out. Mr. Lyons can finish it up. This is for a parcel that we're looking at for a new subdivision, and it's west of the city. They're off of 9th and Clareville. Mr. Lyons?
Yeah, so this is a parcel that's just east of Clareville Road that is within the Zone C attachment area for our cooperative agreement with the town of Algoma. That area is slated to come into the city in 2023. The potential applicant for the new subdivision is asking that it attach to the city at this time so they can have access to municipal services.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, discussion? All right, again, no action on this item tonight, and we'll move on to new resolutions. 21-164, approve budget amendment and fund transfer, approve spotlight designation, authorize redevelopment authority to acquire 548 Otter Avenue, $50,000. Redevelopment authority recommends approval. Motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Erickson and Ford. Discussion? All right, Mr. Davis, can you just share a little bit about the background on this property and how we came to the $50,000 figure on that?
Yes, this property is vacant. There's been orders on the property. The property owner approached city staff with an offer to sell the property for demolition. City staff did a review of the property. It's a building that should be torn down at this point in time. The assessed value is a little less than 100,000. The fair market value is over 100,000. RDA policy has been about 50 cents on the dollar when it comes to how much they're willing to spend for acquiring these types of properties. We do have budget available in our CDBG account for blight eliminations, and this meets that requirement. It also is located in the 2021 Rock the Block neighborhood, the River East neighborhood. So hopefully the timing can work out for acquisition and demolition. The adjoining property owner has already approached staff about purchasing the land for their use as well.
Thank you. Other questions or discussion? Okay, then let's please call the roll on 21-164.
Allison Ospey,
Aye.
Krause,
Aye.
Mulgrower,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
O'Leary,
Aye.
grade 7.
Next new resolutions 21-165, approve agreement with Watco companies pertaining to installation of casings near the Wisconsin and Southern Railroad in Southwest Industrial Park as part of contract number 20-2. We have a motion and a second on this item.
Moved. Second.
Deputy Mayor Krause and Mulgrower seconds. Discussion. Mr. Davis?
Yes, this project is related to the extension of a rail spur in the future to serve businesses in the Southwest Industrial Park. By installing the casing, we're protecting the sewer and water pipes that would reside underneath the spur. By putting in the casing, this would minimize the chance we'd actually have to shut down the spur to do any kind of maintenance or repair. So Watco, the operator, is very motivated to keep that spur alive. So they are paying for the casing, and the city is incurring no cost for that. The agreement here is that this is being done as part of a city project, and Watco will reimburse the city for the costs.
Thank you for that summary. Any other questions or discussion on 21-165? All right, please call the roll.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Rousey,
Aye.
McGuire,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Heschel,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
All right, we're just flying through tonight. Council discussion and direction of city manager, future agenda items. Looks like we have an organizational meeting scheduled for April 20th at noon. City manager, I know this is probably going to come up in the next item, but what are your thoughts about how that might flow?
I believe that, given the announcement that we were going to remain virtual through April, remains to apply unless council has any preference to change anything, but we would simply log on at noon, just like we log on here at 6 p.m. The city clerk would administer the oaths of office. I believe, Ms. Ubrig, you can do that virtually. Or do they need to come in at a specific time and do it face to face with you?
I will get the oaths to the council members and then I will administer it virtually and then they can get it back to me.
Yeah, because you have to sign that piece of paper and whatnot. So that's how we plan to do it. Typically how's it work? The former council starts the meeting, Ms. Ubrig?
I'm sorry.
Yes, former council.
Yeah, the former council starts the meeting.
Correct.
So we'll have to, just have everybody log on and then, and everybody else will be a spectator until they're not a spectator and vice versa. So that's really the plan. So it would remain virtual unless I hear something different from the council, but to maintain consistency, that's what the idea is.
And then we adjourned sine die, and I believe you and I were talking about what some of the photography machinations might be in adapting to that.
Are you referring to the council chamber photograph? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm happy to report that the 3 weeks before your term of office ends, the virtual picture of all the council members is now on display at City Hall. Encourage you to do that. And given the success with which we were able to do that, we'll be reaching out to the council. I think we can get this done in May. We wouldn't do it on that day, but we'll arrange some evening where we can bring the council members in waves. And I invite you to take a look at the photograph and see how it looks with everybody photoshopped in. I was quite impressed with the technology and how that made it work. The mayor suggests we put a disclaimer in there because it looks so good. So
We don't want any deep fake stuff going on.
Yeah, but I encourage you to take a look at that.
All right, well, thank you. So I asked to put this next item on the agenda as we've all, had bits of discussion with, with residents, with folks who've participated virtually. I've had a number of, discussions with our boards and commissions. Some have done better than others with our virtual meetings over the past year. I would say there's a lot of energy to get back in person. So it seemed like the time to start having the discussion about what kind of timeline we might anticipate moving forward over the coming weeks and months in terms of resumption of in-person. So I'll just ask Mr. Roloff to share with all of you what we've been talking about.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you know, we made the decision, I made the decision, and it was based on input from public safety, county health, to maintain the meetings as virtual through the month of April.
part of that was just to make it clear and for us to be able to get notices out, because that's the most important thing, is about getting the public notices out for meetings. Sometimes, particularly with a plan commission or council meetings, we need to have several weeks of notice because of the public noticing requirements for class 2, or in some cases a class 3 or class 4 notice. And we have to tell people how they can expect to attend the meeting per se. So that's what we've been doing. Quite honestly, we would need to make a decision on the on the May meetings prior to your next council meeting. So any input that you can provide me to make the decision, because it's been delegated to me in the ordinance, but I absolutely respect the fact that this is called a city council meeting for a reason. It is your meeting, and I want to respect that. And I think it's appropriate to maintain consistency between this public meeting of the council and the other public meetings of the boards and commissions. If you feel differently, I welcome that. It's not a hard and fast rule. There's no requirement for it, but I think the comfort level varies across every board and commission as well as council. But the numbers, although public health has been showing that numbers have not been going up a great deal recently, there seems to be a little bit of a spike. I will just briefly report that we've seen a little bit of an uptick right here at City Hall with our own employees. I think we were in really good shape for a very long time, but now we've started to see a little uptick. As you see, I am at home this evening, finishing my quarantine. So it gives you an idea of how we're, how we've been affected by that. So there's still issues like that, but I certainly want to be able to be respectful of what council's desire is. And given the fact that April 13th will be probably too late for us to do that, I'd suggest that we get some discussion on it now.
Councilmember Ford.
Yeah, maybe this is more emotional than anything, but if there's any way we could make that switch April 20th. We have 2 long-serving board members that are going to be coming off council. It'd be really nice to be able to have that moment in person. Yeah, that'd be my preference if it's possible.
Deputy Mayor Causey.
I would agree with Mr. Ford. I mean, it's an important meeting that we could possibly attend in person. And then there'll be 2 new council members, up to possibly 4. And maybe we could get their input on future meetings after that. I mean, that's almost a majority of people possibly on council, that they should have their opinion weighed as much as ours here. And by April 20th, I think all of us currently or will be eligible for the vaccine if we choose to get it administered. So at that point, we can have a little more comfort too. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Roloff, did you say that there seems to be a bit of a little uptick there at City Hall though?
Yes, without getting into details and revealing some personal privacy issues with our employees. Yeah, there's been an uptick.
Oh, Councilmember Mukarauer.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm in agreement with Mr. Ford and Deputy Mayor Krause that I think the 20th would be appropriate. That'd be nice. I could appreciate Mr. Ford's, as he mentioned, the emotional attachment maybe to that meeting. But Deputy Mayor Krause is also right that we seat a new council that day, and the 3 individuals that are elected need to have a say in this as well. So that would be my preference as well.
Anyone else? Council member comments, preferences? Councilmember Erickson?
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm fine with having in person on the 20th. I do think it's important for the new council to be able to have this conversation. I think I do lean towards, if possible, extending the virtual option through May, just because May 1st is currently the date when eligibility opens up for everyone over 16. That of course may move up, but I would want to be able to see that anyone who wants to attend our meeting in person has the option to receive a vaccine if they want it. So that likely would happen in May. But look forward to having the conversation more with the new council.
So are you saying, Councilmember, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Did I understand then you would prefer to wait until May before we come back in person, or you're okay with us having the new council meet in person and they decide at that point?
Yeah, a little confusing. I'm fine with meeting in person April 20th because of just the purpose of that meeting. But when we have that conversation with the new council, I think at that point, depending on when eligibility has opened up for the public, I would still be looking at extending virtual through May, or the option for virtual.
All right. Well, and I appreciate all the input, certainly, and having the conversation. It would, for, again, those sentimental reasons, be great to have everybody in the same room before that adjournment. So looks like you have some, city manager.
Thank you. And yeah, I think I do have some direction. I know you were about to say that. I was going to let you finish, but we will make every effort. We normally don't have a staff contingent beyond the city clerk, attorney, and myself. So because we're not doing pictures, we don't need to worry about that. And I guess we can reach out to the newly elected officials and let them know that we'll do it in person, but perhaps suggest that they withhold having family members. We can always arrange something with family members for photographs at a separate time. And then we can spread you out pretty easily throughout 404 and 406 so that we can keep our distance.
All right, thank you, everybody. And so we're next on to future workshops. Is this a request or you have some wish list for us?
Nope, that was just a place marker, Madam Mayor. The only other one is the number 40 about our follow-up from our
right,
March
great.
11th meeting.
So what, I'm trying to refresh my memory. I believe there was municipal funding, TLP, housing and homelessness, if I recall.
Yeah, I do recall that before the meeting, council members Ford and Mugrauer had a discussion with me about perhaps taking some stand with respect to a resolution, even though the council has given me direction on MSP, also perhaps to make a statement about shared revenue. And coincidentally, I was reminded of that through an email from the League of Municipalities that was getting circulated today that some of you, sounds like Mayor, maybe you have seen it as well, but there's a resolution that staff has started to work on. So I think it's consistent with what council members Mugrauer and Ford were kind of anticipating that we do it. I think the debate we were having, and I quite honestly, I can't remember which side of the debate I was falling on, was do we do separate resolutions for some of these, or do we do a comprehensive one? But you heard some of the comments from the legislators about what they thought about shared revenue, if they thought anything would happen there, discussions about MSP. So I guess I can put things on the agenda as a follow-up to perhaps do some resolutions. There may be value in getting it done with this council because you have more of the background with it. We'll certainly be educating any new council member because that's part of what we do. But to get the word out, I know the league wants to get some, not only just in support of it, but examples. So that's what I'm having staff work on. That'll populate a resolution that you've got some meat on the bones of your individual resolution saying, this is what it means to Oshkosh versus just in general type of thing.
And I don't know if other council members had a chance to read through that league toolkit that had the sample resolution and that or not today. It did kind of come in, I think, somewhere around midday. I personally have not read through the entire thing. Do council members have a preference though, as Mr. Roloff was indicating, in one comprehensive, all-inclusive, or divvying it up, slicing and dicing?
Yeah, happy to weigh in if nobody else is. I guess I'm ambivalent whether they're separate resolutions or just one. My main concern is that we stay focused on those fiscal issues, the MSP, shared revenue, and local sales tax option, as opposed to kind of going down the rabbit hole of weighing in on everything in the state budget, which could take us in different directions. So if it is just one, I'd want to keep, if it is just, 2 or 3 resolutions, I'd want to keep it narrow to those issues, in my preference.
Councilmember Mugherawer.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Councilmember Ford kind of hit it on the head for myself. I'll reiterate that. I think either way, I'm fine. I think if we do one, just, and as City Manager Roloff alluded to, make it specific to Oshkosh. Here's how it's affecting us, that we're not using a blanket one that we're just copying and pasting from the league or another entity, that this is what Madison is doing to Oshkosh. This is how it's affecting us and our ability to govern at the local level. And we'd like you to give us some relief and allow us to do some things that could be beneficial to Oshkosh.
So if I recall, there were a couple of items, and I hear what you're saying, Councilmember Ford and Mugherawer, regarding, the municipal aid and the financial end of it. I'm wondering though, if we exclude looking at other things that do have some very specific local control and impact, for example, some of the water quality issues and some of those things that, speak to, many of those items are dealt with at the local level anyway. So is it my understanding you only want to talk about money and none of the other things?
I good Ford here. I guess there's overlap there. So something like this local sales tax option. That's clearly like a local control policy item, but it does deal with a clear financial thing that we can draw back to a fiscal impact to Oshkosh. Not sure if that's an answer, but that's my answer.
All right. Thank you.
I guess it comes down for the council, a question of, do you want to do them individually? Because for example, let's say there's an issue A. It doesn't matter what it is, but issue A has unanimous support with the council. But say a couple of council members have a concern about issue B, that there's some division on it. Having them a la carte gives each council member the ability to vote individually on them. What I've heard so far is the local sales tax, the MSP, and the shared revenue. So I could have staff produce 3, and if any other council member wants to add any others, the legislature is still going to be dealing with budget issues, and of course, budget issues that are not budget issues in the budget, and they'll be doing that through June at a minimum. So we could do those 3, and then if there's other issues that council wants to bring up, they can simply ask staff to. Resolutions we will put on an agenda. Those are policy issues, as opposed to ordinances, which take a great deal of time and effort. Resolutions, we can, I don't want to say the city attorney's office has unlimited capabilities, but they're good at cranking out resolutions pretty well.
All right, and I guess that's a good reminder for folks too, that if you do have resolutions, consideration of timeliness and adequate time to prepare would be appreciated.
More than you know. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right.
So I can work on those 3. And of course, if anybody else has any others that they want to take a look at, the mayor mentioned something, we can take a look at that. And but those are the financial ones, and we can work on those immediately.
All
That's
right.
really, that's all I had from that as follow-up, unless there's anything else that other council members may have had.
I don't see anybody raising their hand. Some videos are off though, so I guess we'll move on then to report of council liaison for boards and commissions. Redevelopment, I'll just quick, redevelopment authority, as was passed earlier. There was a spotlight designation on Otter Street. There were a couple of renewals of CUPs for green spaces, and then discussion of community garden RFP and the status of that, as well as an inventory provided to the redevelopment authority of all of the property parcels that are currently off the tax rolls, and some, discussion about the value of that. And I'm not sure if Mr. Davis is still here or not. I don't recall the actual number, but it was in the multi-millions of dollars. Is 10 million? Does that sound right, Alan?
About 1.2 is what I remember.
1.2. I was a little bit over
Just a
dismayed.
decimal.
Yep.
All right, and Councilmember Erickson?
Sure, I just have a report out from the Transit Advisory Board. We met last week. So just an update that Go Transit is part of a tri-county initiative funded through the area community foundations, United Ways, other funders, their COVID-19 emergency response fund, to provide free transportation to vaccination locations in Winnebago, Outagamie, and Calumet counties. So that's happening now through the end of the year. Go Transit, along with Valley Transit, are providing transit rides, fixed route rides, and paratransit service to any site providing vaccine. And then we also got an update on the student busing program of ridership numbers. They are seeing a pretty steady increase with school being in person now for Oshkosh. For the month of February, they saw 3,817 total rides given. That brings us to 6,624 rides so far in 2021. That's it.
Well, that's awesome. Other council members' reports on boards or commissions? All right, well, then we are on to city manager announcements and statements.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few things. In your packet is the fourth quarter preliminary general fund revenue and expense reports. Mr. Van Gompel is available if there's any questions regarding that report. But I think we had talked earlier, because of COVID, the net impact, given the revenues that we were shorted, as well as overtime costs that we incurred because of a lot of backfilling of overtime for people who were quarantined or whatnot last year. We're at about a $200,000 loss in the general fund deficit for spending in 2020. That's we had a lot of revenues down, but we also had some expenditures down on the flip side of the equation. But the expenditures still exceeded the revenues. Parking ticket revenues, of course, and I'm talking general fund only right now. The council made the decision to waive liquor license fees, for example. But the ticket revenue, parking revenue, those revenues were down significantly. So that's the net cost of it was $200,000.
Mark?
Yeah,
Hey, Mark.
please. Oh, that's Ross. Okay, go.
Yeah. I just want to point out that if you just look at the revenue side, and it's on page 612, the revenue side, we're down about $3 million roughly. So like Mark said, we're lower on revenue, we're lower on expenditures. We have a negative drawdown of 200,000, but as Mark and I look at what's happening with the American Rescue Plan, we believe we can recapture that $3 million in the general fund reduction in revenue. And that would be probably our number one recommendation going forward on the American Recovery Act.
Yeah, so that's real important to point out that even though we netted a 200,000 loss. Revenue is down 3 million. So, and that's very relevant to one of our next items. So that's the, you'll always get a year-end financial report post-audit. The auditors will be here in a few weeks to begin that process, but essentially the finance department gets these numbers together in advance of the auditors getting in there to see if there's any tweaking that needs to take place after after these numbers are done. So appreciate Mr. Van Goppel getting this all out in time for the auditors to take a look at it real quick. Are there any other questions?
Yep, Councilmember Mugarauer had his hand up.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at the numbers, not the camera. Sorry.
Appreciate it, Mayor. Thank you. No, I just wanted to say, considering what 2020 was, to come in, a few 100,000, roughly 200, is pretty remarkable for us. Even considering reductions in revenues, reductions in expenses, but also a whole lot of unanticipated expenses. So kudos to Mark and staff for managing the budget in a very unusual year. And I 100% supported the move and would do it again over. But Mark alluded to it. 70,000 roughly of it was council's decision to forego charging for liquor licenses. So of that 200,000 rough loss, one decision that we made accounted for roughly a third of that. And like I said, I 100% support it, and I'm glad and grateful that we did it. But we had a part in that minus that little loss as well. So, but I appreciate all the effort on 2020 and keeping the numbers as tight as they were.
Councilmember Mugarauer. This is Finance Director Van Gompel. And for the rest of the council, I think another thing that kind of gets overlooked, and Mark talked about it, was a reduction in fines and forfeitures. Just simply going out and looking at, enforcing parking regulations and those type of things really took a big hit in the general fund as well. And I didn't want to lose sight of that.
So that's the summary of that report. But that's the old, that's 2020. Now the next item actually skips over 2021 and goes to the 2022 budget calendar. And we wanted to get this out as early as possible to get people understanding, we've got to get thinking about this. Draw a couple of things to your attention. We're taking advantage of a couple of Fifth Tuesdays that are taking place in June as well as August to do some of our workshops. So we're actually doing our first budget workshop a little earlier than usual, but it's on June 29th, which is a Fifth Tuesday. We thought we could take advantage of that. So if you want to keep that in mind as you're planning ahead. And also in August, so we're going to move our second budget workshop to the last meeting or the last Tuesday in August for that reason. And then if you can also mark on your calendars, council workshops 3 and 4, those are the all-day departmental reviews. That'll be the 18th and 19th of October with the planned adoption of the council budget on November 9th. So I encourage you to look at the calendar. If you anticipate any potential conflicts, the sooner you let us know, the better. And we'll certainly be sharing this with the full council when they get reseated on April 20th. But we wanted to get it out as soon as possible. So we've got that. The next item has to do with the discussion that Mr. Van Gompel talked about with respect to the American Rescue Plan Act. And I was fortunate enough to attend a session with the National League of Cities on Friday. And in your agenda packet is a 15-page document that summarizes this from Michael Gleason with the National League of Cities. And he's their chief lobbyist who was very involved in working with the White House as well as the Congress in terms of details of the plan. And I would really just draw to your attention, now I'm gonna have to get it on the right page for you within the agenda packet. If you excuse me for just a second. The page would be for council to look at. What I draw your attention to would be page 622 of the agenda. It's that allowable uses. And this is what was probably the biggest discussion point with the National League of Cities, but pretty broad with paragraph A, with responding to public health emergency with respect to COVID-19 or its negative economic impacts. And I think that goes to Mr. Van Gompel's point about we were short $3 million in revenues, but including assistance to households, small businesses, and nonprofits. That's pretty broad. Or to aid impacted industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. That's fairly broad as well. The $3 million that Mr. Van Gompel pointed out does not include, for example, room tax, which was a full $1 million in loss. So that clearly was something that was impacted. So we're going to be taking a look at that. And
Hey, Mark.
Oh, go ahead, Russ.
Just for council's review, there's the next page on 623, paragraph C, it deals with the lost revenue. So if you're referring to lost revenue, it actually falls under item C on the next page.
Yeah, I stand corrected. This all got blurred. Yeah, so it's right in there. I guess it was when I saw the tourism, travel, and hospitality, obviously that's a big deal, but the revenue loss is there. So that when Mr. Van Gompel points out the 3 million loss in revenue, that's the loss that the ARP is focusing on. It's not the fact that we may have had some reduced expenditures, but the fact that we absolutely had lost revenue. So what we're having staff do right now is do a comparison of what their revenues were in 2019 or an average of revenues over a period of time, so that, for example, pool revenues, if 2019 was a weather cool year, we might have had fewer people go to the pool at that point. So we want to take a look at, say, a 3-year average to determine what our true revenue loss was in 2020 versus a regular year. And all of those are legitimate concerns. It's not just what's in the general fund, it's what we experienced across the board. So we'll be taking a look at the museum, all of the facilities in parks, whether they're funded by general fund or not. They're indirectly funded by the general fund in many of those cases, but these 4 pages give you the best example. And then the last page that I want to draw to your attention would be 624, which is paragraph D, to make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband. And there's some caveats that are listed on that page. And even Mr. Gleason with the National League of Cities is still trying to sort that out. And a lot of the municipal representatives on this webinar were calling into question a lot of things. That does sewer mean just sanitary sewer, or does it mean storm sewer? When the mayor and I talked about this, she said, well, does water mean just drinking water, or does that include water quality in terms of that? So, and then broadband is pretty broad as well, no pun intended. So a lot of things that it could be used for, and we're still learning, but obviously these are the allowable uses, and I would encourage you to take a look at that. I can tell you that already I've had inquiries from many different groups, because as you notice with paragraph A, it also says nonprofits. So there were questions about, well, can you do anything for this nonprofit or that nonprofit? Small businesses, what can you do for small businesses? I will still point out that we still have a wonderful loan program that's available that we created on our own with our own local resources that the council did almost immediately. Those programs still exist, and we're still going to be pushing those. But obviously, because of the breadth of things we can use with this funds, that'll be an issue. If I got one more thing, but if there are any questions about the allowable uses, this would probably be a good time. I'm not going to be able to give you all the answers, but it gives you an idea of giving you a rough idea of what we're looking at.
Just housekeeping wise, city manager, so that that slide on 624 that references the term or rather than and when it comes to the infrastructure, that only applies to category D, correct? Not to, we have to choose one of the A, B, C, or D. It only applies to D with infrastructure, correct?
Correct. So but you have people slicing it that thinly. So it's an excellent question, because is it like, do you choose one or do you get to choose all of the above? And then what's within all of the above? So yeah, it's still a handful of questions. And even though Mr. Gleason was, as I jokingly referred to, he was in the room where it happened, even he's still trying to figure it out. So there's still a lot of interpretation that's going to be underway. With that said, the last thing I wanted to point out, because you've heard different numbers, and I think initially, as I had talked to some of the council members, there was a number of 19.7 million. Mr. Van Gompel, I think, saw a number as high as 20.97 million. So what is the exact number? The exact number is, we don't know just yet. During the call with the National League of Cities, it was pointed out that there were some concerns with what some cities had said they were getting as their allocation. They felt there were errors. And in fact, the city that mentioned it, Mr. Gleason, knew exactly the type of situation that city was under, and they had to fix that. The pie for cities is still a $65 million pie. If somebody has been shorted in that formula that we initially saw, that pie has to reset for everybody. So I would say plus or minus 20 million, and we'll have to leave it at that for now. And as we get closer, we'll have a better number for you. I know that towns in Michigan are totally different than towns in Wisconsin, and they have the entire formula screwed up in Michigan, and they have to reset it. So just Michigan alone screws up the entire nationwide formula. So stay tuned, and we'll be providing you information as we get it.
Well, thank you. And then you and I had talked about too, the likelihood that we would have some form of public participation weigh in throughout that process.
Yeah, I think this is, I don't think this is anything different than what we've seen with, say, our community development block grant dollars, which now they technically require a public input session. Several of you have brought this up and certainly opened ideas, but certainly public input, I think, is necessary. I want to make sure that we as staff are taking a look at all of the allowable things, but also we have to be realistic. I know there are people saying, well, do this or that. We don't want to give people false hope that something that's not allowable is allowable. So I think based on everything we see, I think we get some input. We go back to the drawing board, and we're going to be getting the first installment within 60 days. That doesn't mean we have to start spending in 60 days. It means we just get the first installment. So if we're going to have a public input session, I think that I would welcome that. It's just how you want to do it. So I guess I'd throw it out to council members and get your thoughts on the topic.
Real quick question for Mark and Russ. So I presume we can't use this funding to pay off any of our debt, but we could theoretically use it to pay for a project immediately that we otherwise would take out debt if it's COVID related?
I believe you are correct. There are some exclusions that's included in the language. One of them is it cannot be a direct reduction in taxes or some type of tax subsidy program. That was clear in the language. Also, we cannot use any funding to put into any pension funds. So that's also prohibited. I was going to chime in just a little bit earlier. I think before everybody gets all excited, like any other program, the proof is always in the pudding at the end when the final regulations get put together. We're waiting for the Department of Treasury to come forward with the final rules and regulations to make sure we're in compliant, because there's going to be some type of reporting mechanism, even though it's pretty broad based right now. will have to follow the regulations as established by the Department of Treasury.
And I took advantage of the call on Friday, and my state committee that's planning our summer conference, we're crossing our fingers we can have it in person in August, but we've invited Mr. Gleason to be one of our speakers. So hopefully, hopefully Mr. Gleason will still be working with the Treasury on their rules, which seems to be, like Russ said, that's where the details are going to get ironed out. So I think us paying attention to what's happening in Washington, since we will receive these funds directly, so we will be working with the Department of the Treasury with this. We will not be working with the state on this. They're passed through to smaller cities, but we will benefit from having a direct relationship with the federal government in this regard. So there'll be more, and I have a feeling we'll be putting this on. In terms of a status of outstanding issues, this would probably meet that criteria. So it'll be my plan to put that on outstanding issues.
Thank you. And do we have a COVID update? Is Chief Stanley with us now?
Yes, he is. And Chief, if you have any updates, big questions these days are about vaccinations. We are still encouraging testing. Given I said what happened with a little uptick at City Hall, I've been running to the testing center, but we want to encourage it for everybody, not just if you have symptoms. In fact, I think they prefer people that don't have symptoms to get tested because that's where it can be hidden. So, Chief, are you there to speak up?
I am. So echoing what you said about testing and your comment about questions around vaccinations, very timely. That in our call with the health department, our EOC call this morning, that reported that 67,000 people, just a few more than 67,000 people in Winnebago County have been vaccinated. So many of those fully vaccinated, but at least that many with one shot so far. That continue to add different criteria for people that are eligible. As Council Member Erickson mentioned earlier, that we'll add more and more, but May 1st, it opens up even more for eligibility, and more pharmacies are starting to receive vaccines, so more opportunities to get vaccinated at different locations. So very encouraging news, as we continue to push through the vaccination phase. We may have a little uptick in City Hall, like the city manager noted, but overall the numbers in the county are still trending downwards. So that's all I have.
On a positive note, we received notice today that our Three Waves Clinic is getting their first small shipment, but a shipment of vaccines that would be available for our eligible city employees. So that process has started. It would be for city, county, and school district. That's Three Waves is a clinic that is just for those three employers. Not a lot of them, but they'll certainly add to the variety or the availability of the vaccine. But certainly County Health is they've set up I think it's wcvaccine.org. They just set that up as a special website just for Winnebago County vaccine information. So again, wcvaccine.org. I would encourage people to look to that site for probably the best general information regarding vaccines in Winnebago County.
And if I recall, the testing website to register is do I need a COVID-19 test.com. Is that the same link that's being used? And generally you can get in either same day or within 24 hours?
You can get darn near in at a moment's notice. You still have to register in advance, but you can say, I want to be there, and they'll say, you can be here in 10 minutes, and you can walk right in. There is literally no waiting, and I would still encourage people to get tested. If you have a close contact, doesn't matter if you don't have a symptom, get in there and get a test, because there's a lot of people that have gotten it that never had a single symptom. So please, please err on the safe side by getting a test, and it's a 10-minute investment in your time. Pretty easy, and you get good information. Chief, anything else you want to share with the council, or any other PSAs, or Councilmember Erickson? Do you think, did we miss anything that we should mention from a general public information standpoint? But testing is still important.
Nothing else for me, sir.
That's all we have, Madam Mayor.
All right, our early voting, March 23rd through April 2nd, is the cutoff, correct?
Yeah, and we're over 4,000 voters that requested absentee ballots. Isn't that correct, Ms. Ubrig?
That is correct. We've mailed out 4,000 absentee ballots. Today was our first day for early voting, and we had 30 individuals come in today. And that will go through next Friday.
All right, well, very good, very good. Well, I know that's all. I just wanted to have a closing sharing moment here. I wanted to thank Mr. Roloff and the Oshkosh media folks and fellow council members for your hard work on the state of the city. It was a little different format. I will say that I learned many little things that I did not know just by watching the rest of that presentation. And we had some really great feedback on it. And thank you to, I guess, you know, all the staff and getting those stories out, you know, that grit and polish and luster that came out of last year. It was pretty gritty, but we're starting to shine again. So really thank everybody for working hard together on those items. And I thought it turned out really well as folks who commented on it.
Thank you. I will pass that on to staff. We got a lot of positive feedback, so thank you very much. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, sir. And we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Mugrauer and Erickson, please call the roll.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Rousey,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7. We are adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.